the topic I wanted to touch on, with it being in the heat of football season, with everything going on, I wanted to talk about just lessons for training and performance. So I wanted to talk about just some tips and tools to help those athletes on there, coaches, uh, and parents when it comes to maintaining and improving performance during and out of the season. So to discuss this topic, once again, I called on some amazing leaders from my network, and I'm going to briefly introduce them and give them the platform to introduce themselves as well. So the first person that we are going to be starting with is, she's a legend. She don't like me talking her up, but she's definitely a legend. She's done so many amazing things. I've known her for a while now, for about 5, 6 years now. And just to see the growth that she's had, being a female football player and doing so many things off the field, and then still continuing to train and perform at a high level, it's just been amazing. So I thought she'd be a great person to just get some diversity of thought and to just talk about how she's been able to improve her performance and continue doing what she's doing at a high level. So Santia Deck is our first game changer, and she is known as the Queen of Abs. She is a history-making professional female football player and social media influencer with over 600,000, yeah, you heard it, loyal and engaged followers. She's a former track and field collegiate athlete, and recently she made history by becoming the highest paid female athlete to play professional football, signing a multi-million-dollar deal with the WFLA. And recently, she also made history by becoming the first female athlete to own her own sneaker company called Tronus. So I'm sure she's going to be telling you more about that. She's also a published author, a fitness model, TV personality, social media consultant, public speaker, and TV host. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Santia Deck. Santia, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. So tell us a little bit about you and just your passion
Yeah, I
about
mean,
performance and training.
yeah, you had a great introduction actually. So, but yes, I am a female football player. I made history back in December when I signed a multi-million-dollar contract. And then recently, back in June, I made history a second time by becoming the first female athlete to actually own her own shoe company. And I just call myself a serial entrepreneur. I do a number of things, but I just say I'm an athlete who is also a business owner. To just leave it kind of short. During COVID, this has definitely been a very interesting time for me. Unfortunately, my season was canceled due to COVID, so we are not even going to be able to play till May of next year. So that's not fun. But what I can say, one thing that I'm learning during this time is to really like take advantage of the opportunity to actually get better, to work on the things that I'm not good at, to
Mm-hmm.
perfect things that I might be a little good at, but I could be better. And I think also just gaining more knowledge of the game, being that I'm a female and I didn't play football all my life, there's still a lot that I'm trying to learn. I'm a running back. So, that's a whole nother story because we have to have vision, be quick, know how to catch, like all these different things now. So this has been, I guess, a blessing in disguise for me because this gives me more time to just become a better athlete overall. So that's what I can say.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're right. I mean, I see you. One thing I'm so impressed about is just your consistency. Even with everything going on, like you said, with COVID, like you're consistently on it, training, perfecting your craft. And I just respect that so much. So I'm excited to hear so many things you have to share. And so the next guy I was supposed to have on was Mr. Calvin Johnson, Megatron, but I don't know what happened to Megatron. He must be busy doing business. So, and it's tough because I took a chance and I invited out a tech guy, which I should have known, you know. But it's all good. We're gonna keep it moving. Hopefully he'll tune in later. And if not, I'm gonna have a surprise for you all. Another athlete who I've called on to join. Luckily, I got a big network of former guys who I played with and against. So we didn't get somebody on here to fill that slot. And he should be getting on soon. But I will go ahead and introduce our next guest, who is Mr. This guy is another legend. I mean, he needs no introduction whatsoever. I get emotional when I really talk about him and the role that he's played in my life. And when I think about my foundation and why I created it, why I do the things that I do now, it's because of guys like him. And just to give you a backstory of how I met Chip, my little league coach, who was like a second father of mine, he took me to my first University of Georgia game, and this was back in 2000. It was like in 1999, 2000, yeah, the year 2000. Like when I first started playing football, when the dream was just beginning. My parents knew absolutely nothing about football. I always tell people, like, for those of y'all who've seen Coming to America, when Eddie Murphy's at the basketball game and he's like cheering for he's like, hit him in the face, like that was my parents pretty much. And so knew nothing about football whatsoever. So guys like my little league coach stepped in, took me my first game, and he also did something that was special, man. That like a lot of parents, a lot of coaches would not do. He took me to my first like training facility where I was able to be around, NFL athletes at 12, 13 years old. And the first facility he took me to was Chip's facility. So at 12, 13 years old, I'm walking around and, I'm seeing Champ Bailey jerseys and Brian Urlacher jerseys. And I'm just, having the opportunity to work with a guy like Chip who has trained the best of the best. And, this guy blessed me so much, when my family couldn't afford it. And, I'm going to stop talking before I get emotional, but I'm going to just talk about him for a little bit because we have had such a long journey. I started training with him from 13, and through high school to UGA to the NFL. He's like a third father to me. So I'm so honored to have him on. He's at the Hall of Fame right now. He'll tell you more about where he's at. But yeah, let me tell you all about Chip. So he does training and combine preparation for scores of players selected each year in the NFL draft. Players include guys like I said, Champ Bailey, Brian Urlacher, Rodney Harrison, and many more. Chip has also worked with 14 Chinese Olympic teams in Beijing, where he trained 41 Olympic medalists, including 21 gold medalists from the 2008 Summer Olympic Games and 20 gold medalists from the 2012 London Olympic Games. He also holds a BS in physical education from Liberty University. He did postgraduate work in speed and strength at the world-renowned Soviet Sports Institute in Moscow. He also holds a Master's of Sports Science certification from the ISSA. Other certifications include exercise specialist from Cooper's Aerobic Institute and a Master's of Sports Performance. So this guy is like the guru. And lastly, Chip was inducted into the Liberty University Sports Hall of Fame in 2010. He has also written and developed the master's program in human performance at Liberty University. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, my brother in Christ, Chip Smith. Chip, welcome, man.
Rennie, thank you, brother. It's hard for me to hear you speak and not get emotional because it brings me back to the time, and I tell this story often. I love you like a son, and it gets emotional talking about you. But one of the best highlights of my life was the day that you walked in. I'll never forget the day that when you came back after your first season with the Titans. You walked in my facility, and you walked up to me, and you had a jersey for me to put on my wall, and you said, "Coach, when I was a kid, I looked at these walls, and I dreamed about one day having my jersey on those walls." And you gave me that jersey, and it was pretty emotional that day as it is for me today. So thank you for having me. Your heart. Everybody that knows you knows your heart and knows how much you love people. And, I'm proud. I'm proud for you. I'm proud for what you've done. I love the coaches in Georgia. As I travel around the world, I tell people everywhere, the best athletes ever are in the state of Georgia. And, a few years back, Kirby had me come over and speak to UGA. And, we figured out that when I was over there that I had trained over 125 players in the NFL that had played at UGA. So, being in that list. So I'm honored to be on tonight, and I'm nobody. I'm just an old sinner saved by grace. And but I love you, and any questions I can answer. As you alluded to earlier. Behind me is I'm actually up in Canton at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I got hired by the NFL to run as I'm sports performance director for the NFL Alumni Academy. And basically, what I'm in a bubble here at Canton at the Hall of Fame Stadium. And what that is we've actually brought in players that have been hurt or players that have been cut, so that during the year when guys test positive for COVID or they get hurt, that the NFL will pull guys out of this bubble. And so I'll be here for 15 weeks. We train there are Hall of Fame coaches that are here, Anthony Munoz, Mike Tice, some really, really, really great coaches. And they have a diversity program too that I want to talk about just real quick. We have young African American coaches that want to coach on the next level. They're here with us, and the NFL Alumni Association has brought in coaches to help develop young men and women that want to coach and compete in the NFL. And so to be a part of that, to be able to share that in this time of craziness in our world is very important to me because, as you've heard me say many times, and I'm going to say this, and I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm going to say it. God says two things. He says to love him first, with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbors yourself. And when you do that, then you can cast all that other stuff out. So, I love our state. I love our coaches. I'm so proud of the young men that coach, and our kids are so fortunate to have so many great coaches working with their children. And I know my kids that played in Gwinnett County had great coaches and teachers. And so, anyway, anything I can do at all for you or for our state or our county, I'm in.
Awesome, man. And that's why I love you, man. You always are giving. You always blessing so many guys like myself. Guys who, like when they are on the brink of giving up on their dream, like Chip is that guy who's like, man, he opens up his doors, and he's created just so many opportunities for guys like myself and kept dreams alive. Like I remember being at your facility, man, so many times where I was just by myself, man, just training, and you never gave me anything but encouraging words. And for those of you athletes on here who been in that position as a free agent, you know how tough that time is. You know how dark it is. And have somebody like you in my corner, man, I just like in front of everybody want to tell you how much you mean to me and how much I appreciate you. So, and in my opinion, nobody knows more about performance and just training than you, man. So, just thank you for all that you do. And with that being said, before I start crying like a baby, I'll get moving on. Oh man, I'm thankful, man. For guys like yourself and coaches and teachers, and yeah. The first question I have is for you, Santia. All right. So, how's your training routine changed with the pandemic and everything that has been going on? And have you been able to really stay motivated and continue to improve?
Well, my routine, it changed slightly. Luckily, like most of my trainers, they also train outdoors. So, the times where we couldn't be inside or it was a little too crowded, we would just go outdoors and work outside. So it hasn't changed really too much. I'm not in the gym as much, so I'm not lifting as much weights or anything like that. But I'm still getting my butt kicked outside equally as much. So it's not I'm not really lacking anything. So yeah, that's kind of how it changed. But how I've stayed motivated is just, first of all, realizing that even though all this stuff is happening, at the end of the day, I still have a season coming up. It is far, but this still is a time where I need to work and grow as an athlete and continue to suck up as much knowledge as possible. And just continue to understand that, I'm trying to win a championship,
Right.
next summer. So that's kind of what's been keeping me focused. And then also being an entrepreneur, this has also been a great opportunity for me to really focus on my business, because obviously when you're in season, when you're training, that's your life. You don't really have time to focus on anything else. So again, it's been kind of like a bittersweet thing for me, because I've been able to really focus on my shoe company. I got it launched back in June. So it's just been like a whirlwind of that, plus just continuing to train, plus doing all this other stuff as an influencer. So in a way, I've also been able to kind of rest, not as much as I thought I was going to be able to rest, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely it's a difference between what I was doing before March. So yeah, like just trying to continue to be successful in that area, and then still continue, trying to be the best athlete that I can be, for my teammates whenever my season, gets here in May. That's what's keeping me going. So just being having a lot of perseverance and motivation to continue to still do what I got to do despite knowing that my season is far out.
Right. No, that's awesome. I love two things that you talked about, which was just staying focused on that vision. Even though things are going on, you're holding that championship in your mind, being dependable or holding yourself accountable to your teammates, even though, you're not necessarily having those games and whatnot. I think that's extremely important, especially for those athletes out there who right now aren't playing or they opted out this year. I work with a couple athletes who are in that position. I know Chip does as well. And then working on other things too, because it's only so much training that you can do, right?
Yeah,
So, and I,
definitely.
yeah, so I really commend you for everything that you do off the field to really maximize your platform, because I feel like that's what a lot of athletes don't do. Like we just kind of put all our eggs in one basket, and we train, we perform, but as far as the training off the field, as far as training for life, we kind of forget that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, great job on just everything that you do, and I loved your answers. So now I'm gonna move on to Chip. So Chip is one of the top trainers. You know how important off-season training is, and with the off-season and training camp being cut short, what are some of the things that you try to do to help players quickly get acclimated to performing for this season and still being able to perform at a high level?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rennie. Because this off season, when COVID-19 hit,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of NFL veterans were unable to leave their families or leave their states and come to Georgia to train with us. So we did some of our bigger name athletes. We sent them packages of equipment, some programs that we do. The guys that had trained with us, like Geno Atkins. Geno's trained with me
Mm-hmm.
the last 6 or 7 years, and he couldn't leave Cincinnati and come to Georgia. So we sent him some stuff that he's trained with in the past. Really, that's probably one of the reasons that I'm here in Canton is because last week there were 52 players that were hurt in week one.
Wow.
52, almost a whole full roster, 53 players, 52 were hurt. So I think what's happening is that these guys that normally would work, number one, they didn't know if they were going to have a season. Number two, they were scared to leave their families. Number two, they didn't have the equipment available in their homes. And so before they didn't have they had no OTAs, they had no preseason games. So if you were a rookie, when you started camp, they're game planning for the first game week one. So veterans are getting all the reps, and those guys aren't in shape either. So we're starting to see, every day we're getting calls from teams like, we need a tight end, we need an offensive lineman, because the guy's getting hurt. So for us, I think, number one, supporting our guys any way that we could through supplements. We would send them our Diamantized supplements because we have a sponsorship with them. So we would, if they needed those, we would ship them to them. We answered a lot of questions. We told them how to do some body weight stuff. Trip shipped some equipment actually to some players. We had some dumbbells and kettlebells extra that we had bought. So we sold some of that stuff and sent it out. So, it's just been a crazy time, unlike any time in my life. And I think, especially in football, we're seeing the results of these guys not getting a chance to get in the weight room. And even that is, and better than anybody, when you're on the field, that face-to-face contact, that game speed is completely different. You can't mimic that in your training. You got to get in there and compete. And I think now these guys are doing that, and they're getting hurt because a lot of Achilles injuries, quads, hamstrings. So it's taking a toll on professional athletes, and it's certainly probably high school as well. A lot of kids didn't have access to facilities.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's so true, and I love what you said about the body weight stuff. Even if you don't have access to the weights and the different equipment, I'm sure tons of just exercises you can do right at home and just to maximize what you have. And I mean, I've been doing that a lot myself just because I'm afraid to still go in the weight room right now.
Well, one of the greatest dogs ever was Herschel, and
right.
He never lifted a weight. He did sit-ups and push-ups and chins,
Mm-hmm.
by the hundreds. And
Right.
certainly those are exercises that you could do, rollovers, crunches to rollover to push-ups. You've done a ton of those.
Mm-hmm.
To dips to chins to I mean, there's so many things that you can do now without weight to at least kind of stay in shape. It takes 3 weeks to start the deconditioning process if you don't lift at all. So you can delay that by continuing to get some work in.
And as you were talking, one of the things that came to mind that I hated but I loved was the pool workouts. Oh my gosh.
So on Wednesdays, so let me tell you how that came about. So back in the early 90s, I was working with some of the Atlanta Braves, and Greg McMichael, who was a pitcher, had been injured, and he came to me and said, "Coach, can we maybe go in the pool?" So I was like, "Sure," but I didn't really know much about aquatic workouts. So I put him in the pool, and I actually had a bat and had him swinging in the pool.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and back and forth, and then I started adding some other things. So now that pool workout, I think, is one of the keys for recovery. It's the most. I mean, as you know, Wednesdays is the most intense 1 hour of work. Because most athletes are like you. I mean, they're rocked up and they swim. It's nobody. I mean, everybody has to wear flotation devices, and so we put them in the pool and again, just taking them through that aerobic work is non-impact. It's a great, great workout, and I think that's one of the keys to the success of my program because we live 4 days, we run 4 days, and then we do that pool for recovery on Wednesdays. I mean, everybody hates it. Brian Urlacher, wife, 2 years ago, I was here in Canton with him when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and I was talking to Jennifer, his wife, and I said, "Hey, Jen, do you guys have a pool?" She said, "Are you kidding me?" She said, "Brian," he said he would never have a pool. you ruined him.
And swim, right?
Yeah. I'm not the pool. He said, "We're not putting the pool in the backyard." So great workout. Great workout.
Oh yeah. Those things, I was shredded after that. I couldn't swim anyway, so like you said, I was in there fighting the water half the time. But the next question I have is what advice would you give to athletes to really help them maintain and improve their performance as they're going through their season? And anybody can answer this question.
Well, one thing I can say, especially for, like for athletes that I guess they're not able to like get to the gyms and things like that. Kind of like what Chip was saying, I do definitely believe in like the body workouts or body weight workouts because I remember doing some of that with some of my trainers, and it was actually harder sometimes than some of the like the weights and the resistance bands and things like that. So I definitely think that is something to do, keep in mind when, still trying to keep up your performance and things like that. Also just going over tons and tons of old film, and just really focusing on like the knowledge part, especially for, the female athletes that's coming into tackle football, which is still it's still fairly new for a lot of us. So still, getting that foundation, which is learning the basics and things like that, watching all the NFL games, watching all the college games, things like that. If you have any old injuries, anything nagging, making sure that you're taking care of that as much as you possibly can, getting the rehab that you need, just doing some extra therapy if you need that. Also taking care of yourself mentally, because as we all know, it's a lot happening in the world on every level possible right now. So not being too caught up in social media, not being on all the blogs and everything like that, taking a mental break sometimes. If you're spiritual, definitely making sure that you're staying grounded in that as well. But taking care of yourself in all aspects, not just the physical part. Also make sure you're eating you're eating right. I know being in quarantine, everybody wants to grab some chips and cookies and call it a day and pizza. But if you have a season coming up, or you need to make sure that you're still taking care of yourself with the nutrition and everything like that. And again, just making sure that you're prepared on all levels, because obviously as an athlete, we all know it's not just physical, it's also mental. So just making sure that, you're keeping that in mind as you go about your day. That's the advice I'll give.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You got anything you want to add, Chip?
Oh, she covered it all pretty much. And exactly what she said is one of the things that I share with kids all the time. Your life is a three-legged stool. You have to be physically, mentally, and spiritually fit. And if you're not one of those, then that stool will fall over. So that's very important that those are priorities in your life. Second, she pointed out too, and one of the things I was going to talk about is nutrition is really important. You can't drive a Ferrari or a Lamborghini and put regular gas in it. So when you're training, you've got to optimize nutrition for recovery, for muscle to increase lean muscle mass. And so a lot of kids don't have access to supplements or that. So eating right, making sure that you're for example, if you're an athlete, we want our athletes to take 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you need 200 grams a day, but your body can only assimilate 30 grams per meal. So you can't eat 30 meals. You can't drink a protein drink and eat a steak. Your body would give that off in the form of urea or unadjusted protein. So every 3 or 4 hours, we want our athletes to ingest protein. That keeps you in what's called a positive nitrogen balance, so that your body has protein readily available for cell maintenance, reproduction, repair, and you're going to put on lean muscle mass. And young kids, and I went through this with my own sons that played when we were trying to gain weight. They didn't want to do what I told them they should do. But for young kids, whether it's a protein bar, it's a can of tuna, a can of white meat chicken. Every 3 or 4 hours, if you can take that in, that will help you put on lean muscle mass and put weight on lean muscle mass on, and that's very important as well. Recovery, regeneration, like she said, your recovery time is as important as your training time. So whether that's sauna, whether that's compression, whether that's massage, all those things are very important to take. Your body is you're like a thoroughbred horse, and so you can't run at a high level all the time without breaking down. So you got to make sure that you get plenty of sleep, your nutrition's good, and that you're not overtraining. A lot of young kids are they think a little bit's good, a whole lot more is better. Sometimes I know for me, Rennie, you were the giddy up and go, and I had to be the whoa.
Right.
I mean, you were like, what else can I do? What else can I do? Well, that's why coaches love you. That's why I loved you as a coach, is because I never worried about you giving me maximum effort in your training every day. Your first rep your last rep was as good as your first rep. Where a lot of and I say this all the time, it's quality of work, not quantity of work.
Right.
And when you train, if your work you get done and accomplish what you need to get accomplished in 1 hour, then that's good. We've done what we need to do. Failure in the weight room is success. Okay, and on the field, same thing. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing your time and be efficient to make sure that everything that we do has a purpose to make you better at something that you do on the field, the court, or the diamond as an athlete. So again, being purposeful and the way that we train. There's a lot of great trainers out there. A lot of sport performance coaches. There's a lot of strength conditioning coaches. But again, I think when your priority is the athlete. It's like I told these players this morning. They're from all over the country: Southern Cal, Oklahoma, everywhere. And I said, look, I'm here to help you get back on a team. So I work for you. Your needs are what are a priority for me. So everybody's needs are completely different. And as a player, you have to be honest with yourself. What are your strengths? And that's what I ask all the time. Tell me what you're good at. Tell me what you're deficient at, and let's focus on what you're deficient at. Because I've learned over 40 years of training athletes, if we can address that and we can talk about it, we can figure out a way to make you better at something that you're deficient in. So again, good coaches do that, and they take kids and bring them up. Football is what you do; it doesn't define who you are.
Right. No, man. Appreciate y'all answering those questions. Y'all gave so many great insights, starting with you, Santia, just talking about the holistic approach. I mean, I totally agree with that. And, for so many young athletes that I know are going to see this, they're guilty of it just as I was, just focusing on the performance side and you're eating whatever. I remember I used to eat 20-piece chicken nugget meals, trying to hit two, trying to hit 210, get enough protein, and just telling myself I was doing all the right things and I would go in the weight room and perform. But like Chip said, I was like that Ferrari putting just whatever in the tank. But over time, as I got to University of Georgia, definitely as I got to the league, I started to learn that you have to take care of your body. And, what you said also, Chip, about, the quality of work over quantity is so huge, not overtraining, making sure that you're, giving your best effort in the weight room, but really taking care of yourself as well. It's phenomenal, just the advice that you all gave. All right, so I got the special guest who I was mentioning before, and we had the tech guy who let it down, but I invited another one of my buddies to be on, and I'm gonna add him in really quickly. If he has on there. There he is, Ronnie Brown. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? I appreciate you for allowing me to, share your platform and get some of this great insight. I was sitting here listening to Chip. I didn't get a chance. Santia, if you spoke, I probably missed something great, but I appreciate it. Anytime I can get that information, I do truly appreciate it.
Oh yeah, man. I thought about you. Of course, it's UGA Auburn week, and so had to bring you on here and talk a little bit of trash, and have a little bit of fun, man. But I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know it's last minute, but you're one of the guys that I definitely looked up to as I was coming up, and that's what my foundation is about, man. Is current former athletes pouring into each other, and I remember being going through the recruiting process, and before I was even on Georgia's radar, you were one of the guys that I watched. Most people don't know I played running back before I played linebacker. And so, you guys had an amazing team. You guys did some great things. And so one of the questions I have for you before we get into the Q&A from the audience is, what are some of the things that you did from a training standpoint to set yourself apart, whether it was in the season or out of season?
Rennie, I think for me, the first thing that I learned about, being a pro, not necessarily a professional athlete when I turned pro and played, in the NFL, but, I think the biggest part about it is understanding what those three letters mean, PRO, pro. That's personally responsible for your own outcome. And so you have to understand what you're trying to get accomplished, and you have to take responsibility for that. And so, for me, I knew that it was on me to go in and make sure that I was doing the things that I needed to do to get better. Obviously, I feel like as athletes, non-athletes, we all have room for improvement. And so just in terms of the approach that I took, it was all a mentality. And so, I think that the first thing was I knew that anything that I was going to get out of it, I had to put into it. And so that was the biggest thing. But even beyond that, I had a coach when I was in Little League. He always told me you have to be great at the things that don't take talent. And that's knowing what to do, knowing where to be, effort. I shouldn't have to coach you on effort and those type things. And then punctuality. Like those are the things that, make you responsible as an individual and show respect of, whether it's a Chip Smith and someone who's training you, obviously those things are most important. And so if you master those things that don't take talent, then you come with the approach, with the mentality, I want to get better, I want to improve, and I'm going to give everything that I got for this. Then success is it's in close view, because at the end of the day, that's success is really based on the individual. It's not any certain level of what you attain. It's just, did I get the most out of who I am and what I was trying to accomplish? And I think if you take all those things into account, I think success is you have a great chance to reach that level.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, man. Thanks so much for sharing everything you said. I love the acronym you use for PRO, personal responsibility for your own outcome. I mean, that's huge, and that's something that we all did to get to where we're at. And I also love what you said as well about being great at the things that don't require talent. I mean, so many of us athletes and non-athletes forget that. that it's not necessarily about that degree. It's not necessarily about your title, but it's about, a lot of times your character, who you are as a person, those things that are priceless, that end up taking you farther than anything you can actually do. So you're exactly right, man. And success is being different. That was another nugget I took away from what you just said, man. So appreciate you sharing everything. We had one question from Jamal Sylvester, and anybody can take this on. I think, Chip, you'll probably know this one, but he asked, how much of your training should be physical and how much should be cardio, and how often?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So a couple of things. If you're in season or out of season, so out of season, you got to put a priority on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So if you're undersized and need to be in the weight room, then that needs to be a priority. If you're slow and you need to increase your linear speed or change the direction or reaction, then you need to work specifically on that. But normally it's about 50-50 ratio. But I ask coaches all the time when I have coaches, especially strength coaches in the universities, will say, coach, what do you do first? We're going to lift first. And I say, well, what's more important, speed or strength? Well, I'm going to tell you, Ronnie Brown, he had both of them. He was a great athlete and he could run and he was strong. But I'll tell you this, I'll take his speed. I don't care if you can bench 500 pounds. If you can't catch me, you can't block me or tackle me. So speed is very important on that next, on the high school level or wherever you play. So I'd say, it is probably 50-50.
Gotcha. All right. I hope that answers the question. And now we'll open it up to the rest of the audience. If anybody else has a question for any of our panelists, feel free to post it in the chat box. And as they're posting, I have another question that Santia kind of hit on, but this is for anybody to answer too. How important would you say mindset and mental conditioning is when it comes to your performance?
I mean, for me, I think it's a huge part. When you talk about sports, giving yourself that mental advantage, 9 times out of 10, I think that's a huge part of it. The mental preparation, but more importantly than that is eliminating distractions. And so, that's all encompassing, not just on the field, on the court, on the diamond. That also is off the field, off the court, off the diamond. Your circles, the people that are around you, everyone has to understand what your goals are and they have to fall in line with that. And so, I think that's the biggest part, because 9 times, if you want to see what your future looks like, you look at the 4 or 5 people that you hang around the most, and you get an idea from work ethic, what you're trying to accomplish, and I think that personal drive. And so when you talk about mentality, the biggest thing is I think everybody relates to the Mamba mentality. We all refer to Kobe Bryant. If you believe it, you can achieve it, and I think that all starts in the mind. And so, I think when it comes to personal ability, to some degree, it all starts with self-motivation, self-improvement, self-help. And so you have to be realistic with yourself about what you do, because even when you talk with guys and you go and you play sports, at the end of the day, if you gave your best, if you gave your all, because as athletes, we all know how we can make it look like we could have did more, or when we're giving our best. And so at the end of the day, you have to go back and evaluate yourself. And so when you're talking about self, the motivation, the mentality, that's the most important part, because it's the realism that how realistic you are with yourself about your output and what you were trying to get out of it. So mentality is big, but it goes beyond the sport that you're playing. It goes also to the circles that you're going to be involved in.
One of the things too, and Ronnie's right, he's right on, but one of the things that I tell all our athletes is we worry about the things that we can control, which is your work ethic, your preparation, your attitude. Okay, we control that. The things that we can't control, especially on the higher level, is where you're drafted, or if you're drafted, what team. We leave that up to the Lord. He's going to put you where you're supposed to be. And when you believe that, it takes all the pressure off.
Yep, that's exactly right. Anything you want to add, Cynthia?
I mean, they kind of touched on everything, but I definitely think already seeing yourself there is a big part. So having a vision before you even, accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish is like pretty much manifestation. Like knowing that you're gonna win that championship you already won in your mind. So just being mentally strong, not having any self-doubt about anything. Because I remember when I was younger, I used to be, very, very shy. And I
Mm.
remember I was also I'm only 5'1". So when I was running track, I was running against girls that was, way taller than me and things like that. And I would kind of psych myself out before the race even began.
Mm.
And I'll be winning, but if I felt anybody on my neck for whatever reason, I would just pull back, and I wasn't there mentally. And then when I finally learned how to, adjust that and fix that, I ended up getting a 4 out to Texas A&M. So it really is all about your mind. I would say
Yeah.
that it's all about your mind.
Now, you guys all hit it beautifully. I mean, just from limiting the distractions to developing the right mentality to the faith piece. I can't tell you how important that was for me. I mean, just believing something before it actually happened, just knowing with certainty that it was going to happen. Especially when I was young and working and training in Chip's facility, like he mentioned before, just looking at those jerseys, just picturing and envisioning myself one day being at University of Georgia, being in the NFL. Even though, like you, Santia, I was considered undersized for my position as well. It literally was a mentality and just a belief and that faith, and then surrounding myself with the right people, like Ronnie said, man. So yeah, thank you for everything you guys just shared. The next question we have is from Rob H. Rob from Melbourne, Australia. What characteristics do the champions of the sport have in training and competition? What characteristics do champions of the sport have in training and competition? Then we got one more question, and we're gonna wrap it up. So what do you guys got on that?
Well, here, let me just address that real quick. And a few years back, I asked Champ what motivated him. Here's what he said: fear of failure. Fear of failure. Because once you've achieved that level, Ronnie, once you've been a Pro Bowl player, if you don't get back there, then you feel like you're cheating yourself. So that's what motivated him to want to continue to play and compete at a high level. Fear of failure. And that was pretty profound for me when he said that to me.
Wow. Anybody else?
I identify with that.
Me too.
That was my personal motivation. When I left Cartersville, Georgia, to go to Auburn University, that was the thing: was I won't go back until I want to go back. I won't have to go back because this didn't work out. And so I've always had that mentality. For me, being drafted, the second player in the draft as a backup running back, my mentality was, if I get an opportunity, I'm going to make the best of that opportunity. So I've always had that fear of failure, and no one's going to outwork me. You might outperform me. You may beat me on this play, but the next time you're going to have to try just as hard, and you won't beat me the next one. And so, at the end of the day, it's like, well, who has the greatest endurance? Because I'm going to show up every time. And so you're just going to have to keep beating me and prove it to me that you're going to beat me the next time. And so it's just going back to that mentality. It's that fear of failure for me. That was my driver. And so nobody's expectations will ever exceed what I have on myself. And that's just, how I approach everything.
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely, that fear of failure, but also I just had such a big why. Like at this time, man, as my whole entire journey, like my parents were struggling, like pretty much from the time we moved to Gwinnett, which is when I was like 11, 12 years old. My dad had lost his business, so he was in a season of alcoholism and depression, and my mom almost died at one point. And so when I saw how hard they were working and just everything that they had sacrificed for me to get to where I'm at, and just knowing where they were from, being from Liberia, and just the lack of opportunity and the Civil War and everything that was going on, I was like, man, I got no reason to complain. Like, I got to maximize this opportunity. I got to take advantage of it. Like, it's bigger than me. Like, it's like I put that whole country on my back. I put my family on my back, and that's how I looked at every single rep and every single time I was on the field. So I think, having a bigger why is something that really sets those champions apart. Those people who achieve high levels. So yeah, we got one more question, and then we're gonna start wrapping things up. And this is an interesting one. This is from Derek Williams, and the question is: as a high school female athlete coach, how do you prepare girls mentally for weightlifting? And they also said, I think younger female athletes think sometimes lifting weights can be a bad thing. So I don't know if you want to take that on, Chip, or anybody.
They did. You ought to take that on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was weightlifting for you? Yeah.
So I actually got into weightlifting, really like, I guess my junior year in high school. And honestly, I was like a tomboy. So like I did it, and I had a twin brother, and I have three brothers. So like I was already, doing things anyway. But um I honestly, when I first started, because I was naturally already very muscular, I wasn't sure if I continue to lift, or if I start lifting, am I gonna get even bigger? And when I realized that no, just because you lift weights does not mean you're gonna blow up and be a bodybuilder. It's just the way that you lift. And when I realized that lifting was also going to enhance my performance, and I started seeing a difference in like my power and my speed and agility and everything, that's when I realized like, okay, this is a must. You have to have some type of weightlifting foundation to compete on a high level. It's just, for the most part, you kind of have to. Definitely nowadays, because everybody is getting trainers, everybody's doing what they can to be the best. And we have all the new technology and everything. So you kind of have to have some type of edge. And for me, I believe like that is why I was always setting records. That's why I was always so strong and different things like that, because I started kind of lifting in high school. And a lot of girls, even, or at least for me back then, they didn't even start to college, which is, I guess, is not a good thing. So I think as a female, and definitely trying to go pro and things like that, you have to have that edge, and you don't have to lift crazy. You don't have to be like, in there max out every day. As long as you have a good trainer, like Chip, to kind of help guide you, that's going to make you a better athlete. So for me, I just knew that I wanted to be the best, and I knew that I needed an edge, and I felt like that is what kind of took me to the next level.
Yeah, and I just want to address the coach real quick. One of the things you can share is that, and the biggest thing is, women's bodies produce estrogen, men produce testosterone. So your female athletes are not going to look like Rennie or Ronnie or me or So to be able to play and compete at a higher level, it's like putting a bigger engine in a Volkswagen. It's going to be more powerful. And that's why you're able to run faster and be more explosive when you increase your lean muscle mass. But it's not; they're never going to look like bodybuilders unless they're training to be a bodybuilder. But just high school weightlifting is not going to force it. It's not going to change them physically.
Yeah.
Right. Well, all right. We had one more question, and this is for Santia. So you're known as the Queen of Abs. So what's the secret?
Honestly, I think my core strength came from track. I've been running track since I was 7 years old. But also my diet. I go on and off being vegan. I'm also, right now, I'm pescatarian, probably going to be vegan next week, who knows. But I take care of my body. I really do. I think about what I eat, what I put into my body, because I know every time I eat something, it's just going to help me or hurt me. Not to say that I don't have cheat days, because I do love ice cream and cookies, but I also know how to balance it. But I'm very very conscious about like what I put into my body. So diet, and just making sure that I'm getting my core work in as much as I can. And honestly, running. I mean, if you look at track runners' bodies, for the most part, they have ripped abs, and I think I had ripped abs since I was like literally 7 years old. So I think it came from track, to be honest, if I'm being real.
Gotcha. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get the final thoughts from our panelists. So just, give us your closing thoughts on training performance, and just how the audience on here can get in touch with you. And then I'm going to announce our winners for this week. So we can start with you, Santia.
Just a really quick quote that I want to leave with everybody is, if you want to, go get it. And pretty much when I say that, that means whatever it is you're trying to achieve in life, if that's your dream, if that's your baby, protect it like it is. And no matter how much you have to sacrifice, how many times you have to fall and get back up, how many people you might lose along the way, if that is your dream, protect it and do whatever it takes. No excuses.
Love it. And how can the audience get in touch with you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram, which is trackbaby001, or you can go to my website, which is queenofabs.com. And yeah.
All right. And Ronnie, let you take it.
You know, I think for me, it's just believing in self. You know, like I mentioned earlier, is, you know, in order to achieve it, you have to really believe it. And so if you go out there and you really want something bad enough, put it in your head, in your mind that you're going to go out and do it. And so in life, with anything you do, whether it's sport or business or anything, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And so you know when you're cheating yourself. And so that's the thing. And in order for you to do that, in order to elevate, you have to separate sometimes. And so you have to be different, dare to be different. We were built for greatness. And so in your mind, you tell yourself, I deserve this because you put the work into it. And, you know, the rest is up to you. And anyone can do it. Everyone can do it. You just have to be prepared and mentally disciplined to go out and, you know, I think make it happen, like Santia said.
Awesome, man. And tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, and then also what's your prediction for this weekend?
Man, you know, I on Instagram, on Twitter, it's at Ronnie23Brown. Prediction for the game, I just hope it's a good game. You know, I think it's early in the season, which is different. We don't usually play, you know, this early in the season. And so giving the preseason, giving the spring, you know, it wasn't a lot of preparation. You know, offensively, I think Auburn pretty much has all their production back, with the exception of the offensive line. So we're kind of young there. Georgia's strength of their team looks like that's their defense, you know, from the first week. And so that'll be a good matchup. You're obviously going to have to stop Pickens on Auburn's side. You know, I think Seth Williams is the receiver that everyone get a chance to see. And so really the crowd's taken out of it. And it's really about the mentality of both these teams coming into it early in the season, not having the crowd. It's all about the self-motivation. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be a high-scoring game. It is somewhere who's the first one to 21 will probably win this game.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to definitely be a war. I mean, to say the least. And whoever gets off to that fast start, builds that momentum, I think that they're going to take it, man. Hopefully it's us, of course. I'm going to root for my dog, but, you know, I like your answer, man. So, all right, Chip, close us out, man.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, like Ronnie said, what the mind can conceive, the body can achieve. And I think when you believe, you have priorities in life. And for me, it's my faith, my family, my vocation, avocation, and when you have a purpose and your purpose-driven life, it makes a lot of things happen because you put priority and you surround yourself with good people. I always want to be the type of coach that's going to tell my players, I want to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. But they never question my love, and that's the biggest thing as coaches. That when kids, you know, the old saying, when kids, they don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And
Right.
so I believe that's probably one of the most important things.
Love it.
You can reach me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, Coach Chip Smith.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for just taking your time to share your knowledge and share your expertise and your experiences. It means so much to me to have you on here, and I really hope that you all can benefit and you know, just get a lot of value from being on here as well, in the form of connections and other things. So now it's time to announce our winners for this week. So the first winner is the winner of these headphones from Jabra, and this is going to go to Dr. Page, former AD at Monsignor Donovan out of Athens. So you won a free pair of headphones. And the next big giveaway is the $500 giveaway. And we're going to give that to Dr. Rose, who is the Director of Athletics at Rockdale County Public Schools. So, Dr. Rose, congratulations. Make sure you reach out to us after this, and we will send you that check. And hopefully it will go to something good. I'm hoping that it'll benefit, you know, your athletes, whether it's pregame meals or whether it's recruiting visits, whatever the case may be. I hope it adds value to what you all are doing there. And last but not least, once again, my name is Rennie Curran. I'm a former professional athlete, keynote speaker, author, and CEO of Game Changer Coaching. And this has been another episode of the Athlete to Athlete series. Once again, I want to thank our sponsors, Sport Turf, and then also the GACA, the Georgia Coaches Association, and also Rhythm Communications. And we're going to be doing this again next week. We'll let you guys know what the topic is, but we're going to have another powerful group of panelists who are going to share their insights and knowledge as well. So make sure you visit GameChangersFoundation.org, and you see just the different things that we're doing. And for next week, I hope that you will invite out coaches, any athletes that you know, any parents that you know, anybody that can really benefit from this, because I really get a lot of enjoyment of just bringing those in my network together, having them share and pour into you all. And that is it. I hope you all have a great night. Make sure y'all watch the Bulldogs this weekend. Beat up on the Tigers.
Y'all ain't never known a Tiger to get beat by a Bulldog.
Had to throw that in there, but y'all have a great night, and God bless. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.